You ever feel like you're doing everything right? I mean, you're tracking your food, you're hitting the gym, you're being disciplined, but the scale just will not budge. It is one of the most maddening feelings, and it has so many people asking the same exact question.
And this right here, this isn't just some made-up quote. It's from a real patient, and man, it just perfectly captures that feeling, doesn't it? That mix of confusion and total exhaustion when all your hard work feels like it's for nothing. But what if the answer to that question, what am I doing wrong, isn't what you think at all?
Okay, let's really lean into this idea for a second. The sources we're looking at, which come from the world of integrative medicine, suggest something pretty radical. What if the problem has nothing to do with your willpower? What if the real issue is biological, something happening deep inside your body that's literally fighting against you?
And that biological culprit, well, it has a name. It's called metabolic inflammation. The best way to think about it is like an invisible fire, just kind of smoldering away inside you, quietly sabotaging all your best efforts.
Now, what's really fascinating, kind of ironic, is where this fire often starts, in your fat tissue itself. And we're not talking about the good kind of inflammation like when you sprain an ankle and it swells up to heal. No, this is a different beast. It's a low-grade, constant irritation that messes up your entire metabolic system and basically locks the door on fat burn.
So that's the million-dollar question, right? If this internal fire is the real villain, how in the world do you put it out? Well, there's an approach that's gaining ground, and it's not about fighting your body with more restrictions. It's about resetting its own powerful internal operating system.
And that brings us to a really interesting tool called low-dose naltrexone, or LDN for short. Now that name, naltrexone, might ring a bell, but probably from a completely different conversation. And the key to understanding it here is those first two words, low dose. And I mean, just look at the difference here. It's night and day. On one side, you have standard naltrexone, which is a pretty hefty dose. But on the other, you have LDN. We're talking about a microdose, a tiny, tiny fraction of the standard amount. And at this super low level, the medication does something completely different. And honestly, pretty clever. It's called the rebound effect. So here's how it works in a nutshell. You take this tiny pill at bedtime, and for just a few hours, it temporarily blocks some of your body's opioid receptors. Your brain senses this and thinks, whoa, where did all my endorphins go? You know, the body's natural feel-good, pain-fighting chemicals. So it overcompensates and starts churning out a whole bunch more. By morning, the block is long gone, but you wake up with this awesome surplus of your body's own homemade anti-inflammatory good stuff. Okay, so more endorphins is great, but how does that actually help with weight loss? This is where it all clicks into place. That one simple mechanism, that rebound effect, ends up supporting what the source material describes as the 4 pillars of getting your metabolism back on track. So, pillar number 1 is the most direct. It's about calming that fire. Remember that vicious cycle where inflamed fat cells just create more inflammation? Well, this flood of natural endorphins helps break that cycle. It tells those cells to just chill out. And once you start to dial down that inflammation, it creates a powerful ripple effect.
And that brings us to pillar 2, helping your insulin do its job again. One source uses this great analogy, saying inflammation is like rust on your insulin receptors. It just gums up the works. So by calming the inflammation, you're essentially cleaning the rust off. All of a sudden, your cells can actually hear insulin's signal again, and they can start using sugar for fuel instead of just packing it away as fat.
Then there's pillar 3, and this one is a game changer, cravings. Let's be really clear, this is not about just zapping your appetite. It's about rebalancing your brain chemistry, especially dopamine, that powerful go-get-it chemical. It helps quiet that nagging biological scream for sugar and all those other foods that are so easy to overeat.
And finally, pillar number 4, hormone support. Because it's taken at bedtime, LDN works right alongside your body's natural overnight rhythm for producing growth hormone. And that's absolutely crucial for holding on to lean muscle and burning fat, especially as we get older. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does this inflammation approach compare to the big weight loss drugs everyone's talking about, like Ozempic? Well, it's really important to understand that these are just very different tools, built for very different purposes. This chart really breaks it down. Look at the main mechanism. GLP-1s work by tackling appetite. LDN, as we've seen, works by tackling inflammation. One's a weekly shot, the other is a daily pill. And then there's the cost. For anyone paying out of pocket, the difference is just staggering. So yeah, they are fundamentally different approaches.
So who might be a good fit for this kind of inflammation-focused strategy?
Well, the sources suggest it could be especially helpful for people who are already dealing with inflammatory conditions like Hashimoto's or fibromyalgia, or anyone with clear signs of insulin resistance, and especially women who are navigating those really intense inflammatory hormonal shifts that come with perimenopause.
And one final really important piece of context here. Using LDN for inflammation or weight loss is what's known as an off-label use. Now, that might sound strange, but all it means is that the drug was officially FDA approved for one thing, but doctors have since discovered it's useful for other things too. It's actually a very common, legal, and well-established practice in medicine.
Which brings us right back to where we started. For the millions of people who feel like they're doing everything right and just hitting a wall, could it be that the answer isn't about more restriction or more willpower or just trying harder? Could the real key to finally making progress be to shift focus entirely and just cool that invisible fire inside?